all of you, and thank you all for taking the time to be here with us this evening. I'm Shanmuga Priya from Mystical Palmyra, and this is Pradeep Chakravarthy, our historian from Mystical Palmyra as well. And I'd like to introduce you to Usha Priya from Chitramai. This is her place. So this is the first time we're doing something of this kind, and we wanted to introduce you to the motifs that you normally see in Indian art and architecture, and keep wondering what it is meant for and everything. And we thought this is a nice way of introducing you in this space, so that you can also get to see all of it around you. Yeah. So, I'm able to cover.
Thank you. Thank you, Priya. So lovely to see all of you here today. I thought we should start with a chant because this is the first time they're doing something like this in a space like this. And it's always good to have some positive vibes, and what better way to get positive energy than chants. The chant that I've chosen today is from the Ayurveda. It's called the Bhagya Sutra. Naga was a deity who granted wishes. As some of you may know, Vedic deities don't really have a gender or a form most of the time. We don't know who they were or what they were. Bhaga was somebody like that. Bhaga then eventually became Bhagavati as well. So Bhagavati, Bhagwan, one who gives without expecting anything in return, became Bhagavati, and Bhagwan or Bhagavata, whatever. This was from the Ayurveda. It's a kind of catch-all. So basically, it asks for everything that we might possibly need. And I'm sure that's good both for the shop and for all of us as well. Yeah? Om Prataragnim Pratarindragum Havamahe Pratar Mitra Varuna Pratar Ashvina Pratar Bhagam Bhushanam Brahmanaspatim Pratar Somamuda Rudragum Huvema Pratar Jitam Bhagam Ugragum Huvema Vayam Putram Abhiteryo Vidatta Adras Chidyam Anyamanas Turas Chitraja Chidyam Bhagam Bhakshityaha Bhaga Pranaitar Bhaga Satyaradho Bhagem Mam Dhiyamuda Vadadannaha Bhaga Pranojane Gobi Rasvay Bhaga Pranvirvantasyama Udedhani Bhagavantasya Moda Prapitva Udamadye Annaham Udodita Bhagavan Suryasya Vayam Devanagum Sumataosyama Bhaga Eva Bhagavagamastu Devastena Vayam Bhagavantasyama Tantva Bhaga Sarva Ijjo Havimi Sano Bhagapura Etaba Vaiha Samadvara Yosha Sonamanta Dadikra Deva Suchaye Padaya Arvachinam Vasubidam Bhaganno Tatamiva Swajina Avahantu Ashwavatir Gomatirna Ushaso Viravatis Sada Muchantu Bhadraha Gritam Duhana Vishwata Prapi Yuyam Patam Swasti Vissadana Yoma Agne Bhaginagum Santamata Bhagam Chikirashati Abhagamatnetam Kurumamagne Bhaginam Kuru Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The reason for doing this conversation or chat was many times we see many motifs in India. Here it's all in the form of objects or paintings, or wood carvings, and oftentimes they're in textiles as well. Many of these motifs get repeated in textiles, in brass vessels, in temples, in stone, in jewelry, etc. One way to admire them is to say beautiful works of art. I like them visually, they're appealing. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it, especially in a culture like ours, which has been around for 4,000 odd years or even more, is to say certain motifs keep repeating over a period of time, from more than 3,000-4,000 years back till date. There must be some significance. It just can't be something that's beautiful, because today we've all seen how interior decor evolved in the 1970s or the 80s, and we're seeing it today. Now there's so many things changing if you look at the more westernized form of interior decor, but some of these motifs are really timeless. So many of this is what we do actually in our heritage stores, and And when the shop was opened by Priya, we said, how could we get people in, but also get them to leave with some knowledge that they can use and reuse when they go back. I thought this was a good idea to start off by saying, here are things that we usually see, but let's see them in a slightly different way. So many of the things here are kept for puja, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time on how puja can be seen in a slightly different way. Then we'll spend some time understanding Indian aesthetics. Then let us spend some time in understanding some of the motifs, the more animal motifs. We'll look at those very briefly. And then we'll go on to one or two themes like the Dashavatara or Nataraja or the Tanjo paintings and the Kerala murals, which are here on this side. We'll look at some of these and we'll see how time goes. I'm guessing 40-45 minutes and maybe 15 minutes of Q&A. I think that's really the way I've thought of this through. So if you can keep a time check for me on around 40-45 minutes, that'll be really helpful. Come. I like to start with a Subhashita, which says Agnir Deva Dhujitina Muninam Hridayatmadam Pratima Svalpa Buddhinam Sarvatra Samadarshinaha. So it basically says, for those who are twice born, Agni is the god. Yeah. For Munis or Munivars, it is really God resides in the heart. Yeah. Pratima Swalpa Buddhinam is for those with not no intelligence, but with relatively lesser intelligence. It usually comes in the form of a Vigraha or an idol. But the ones who can see the divine spirit in everything, everywhere, they are truly the wisest. But when we say wisest, and this is a very important way to interpret it, when we say wisest, it does not mean the best. Yeah? It just means wise is also one option, that's all. So throughout when we are looking at this conversation of an Indian way of approaching motifs, an Indian way of looking at deities or chanting or music or whatever it is, it's never about one way being better than the other. There are many ways, all of them equally good for those people. This happens to be one scholar's way of looking at it. So when we look at the pujas, one is of course you can look at it as a ritual and we can have a nice conversation about it. The other is to look at how as pujas evolved in the last 4,000-5,000 years, the shift was slowly from seeing the divine manifestation in nature to becoming more and more into idols and iconography. And the earliest traditions are constantly there are two forces playing within each of us, pravritti and nivritti. Pravritti is what makes us look outward. So our senses make us look outwards. I love the brassware here. I love the tinkling of the bell. We enjoyed the food that was given. The carpet here is soft on the feet. So the sense of touch, the sense of taste, the sense of smell, fragrance, seeing something, all of these are ways that the senses make us appreciate what is around us. And as we start using these senses to appreciate what is around us, we also recognize that we are made up of those same Panchabhutas. Yeah? What we see outside is also what is within. What is within is also what is outside. That's really, so we are independent and yet we are dependent. So it's very difficult to understand this I'm independent and dependent unless we go back to this hymn and say, yeah, there are 4 different gods for 4 different sets of people, but it's not that one is better than the other. All of them are equal in their own way. So when these senses become ways for us to enjoy the outside world and therefore understand the inside world, they can also be very distracting. I mean, who wouldn't like to have another masala? Who wouldn't like to acquire more and more of beautiful objects? There in all of us. Who wouldn't want to taste something, a favorite dish again and again? So while these senses help us understand what is outside is inside and what is inside is outside, they also have the capacity to distract us. So while pravritti or looking outwards is essential, and whether it's essential or not, we will end up doing it anyway. Nivritti of looking inside is also equally important. Puja becomes an opportunity where we can look inwards. Yes. So when we have to look at puja as inwards, it's easy to say, oh, there is God everywhere and God is within us and it's a divine spirit. But it's a damn hard thing to do in day-to-day life. Yeah? You need something to give you that sense of focus. You need something to capture your attention. Let those distractions be more manageable, which is why an idol or a deity or a painting becomes important. So when we do the puja traditions, and these have been there, maybe they got codified in about the Yajurveda time, so that's when the Bhagya Shuktam was composed. But from that time on, as society started becoming more and more urban, more and more settled, our connection with nature became less and less evident. And it's an easy thing, right? If you live in the city, it's far more difficult to enjoy a sunset or a sunrise than if you're in the village and if you're all by yourself, or if you're on the beach. So as we become more entrapped in this urban setup, it becomes more and more difficult for us to be able to see this connection between God and nature and ourselves and all of us, how we're all connected to each other. So puja must have therefore come as a way to substitute the fact that we've become much more urban, we've become much less connected with nature, and therefore we need new ways to establish this connection. And puja rituals became very, very important at that point of time. We had the Shodasha Upacharas and the Agama texts, which the Shodasha Upacharas and the Brahmanas, which were texts that looked at codifying puja rituals at home. And we had Agama texts which started codifying rituals in the temple. And both of these developed very simultaneously. The principles are the same, but the way it was done was different. Obviously, when in a temple there's more people, there's more wealth, it becomes very different. Yeah. When we look at a puja at home, and you'll see many of these items here, like the Deepa Aradhana and that incense burner there, the lamps over here, all of these will connect to different parts of the puja that we do. When the puja is done, the idea is, yes, there is a deity, either a painting or a deity, but constantly you're saying it's not just that, it's what it represents which is important. But however, that being said, you treat the deity as a guest, and you would do all the things that you would do for a person who comes home. You would do it for that deity, which is called the upachara, or it is a way of establishing your connection with the deity as being one of respect. Upachara basically means that it's respectful hospitality, if I had to give you a kind of an English translation for that. When we look at these upacharas, the beauty of Indian systems is everybody, many of us think that we weren't very good at documenting things. That was not true at all. We were in fact, I think we were obsessively good at documenting things. So we have lots and lots of texts that list out the number of upacharas. Some of them say 32, some of them go as much as even 128. But the general list is about 16. Shodasha Upachara is the list. We have Dhyana, which is about internalizing first that you're not doing this as a ritual, but it's about that connection and that balance between independence and interdependence. Then we have Avahana, which is when you imbue that deity or that image with the divine aspect itself. You do that. Then you have Asana, which is you give them a seat, which is why you all got a seat to start with. We have Padya, which is about washing their feet, because remember in those days, people had to travel long distances and it was very dusty, and washing the feet was an instant way of becoming freshened up. Arghya is washing your hands. Achamana is sipping water because to quench the thirst. Snana is to have a bath, so if you had a guest who was staying home, you would give them that provision. Vastra Abharana is to give them gifts of textiles and jewelry. Yagnopavita is not just the punal, it's actually the upper garment. And the upper garment means it gives that person a sense of status and respect. Then there is Gandha, which is sweet smelling fragrances. There's Archana, which is you say nice things. Yeah? So when somebody comes home, we say nice things about them. Maybe we even flatter them a little bit, which is quite okay, and that's really what Archana is. Then you have Dhupa and Deepa, which is again fragrances and the light. Naivedya is food. Then you have Tambula, which is of course betel leaves, which was a aphrodisiac in those days. And finally, you have Nirajanam, which is a way of getting them to sleep or sending them a lullaby. This is the basic list. If you see this in temples, you will find them doing all of this. And in most homes, when they do the full-fledged puja, they would do all these aspects as well. All the traditions in the Shaivite Agamas and the Kamika Agamas, which is for Shiva temples and Devi temples, you would actually have objects. So you'll have many of these objects that are used here will be used. Vaikanasa, in the Agama traditions in Vishnu temples, you have the Pancharatra and the Vaikanasa. The Vaikanasa traditions will use these kind of objects. The Pancharatra traditions will use them through hands and gestures. Yeah, and this you will see in Kerala as well. The purpose being, at least for the Pancharatra school and for the Kerala school as well, when you use objects, there is a greater chance that your love is more for the object than for what it represents. So if you're able to do the mantras in the mind and use your gestures, it invokes a higher degree of concentration. So all the time, it's about how do you internalize this, how do you take this inward for you to be able to see this connection with different people. So when we look at objects in this space which are connected with puja, it's always about bringing this connection together. The samsara tradition looks at, because I am dependent on you, I will learn to become independent. The Shramana tradition, which the Buddhists and the Jains followed, said that let us first explore independence, and from independence let's move to dependence. But this need for us to balance both independence and dependence is there for every human being. I want to come to your home, I want to be treated as a guest, but I also want my independence of not being a non-vegetarian. Right? I also want my independence of not being allowed to eat certain things. So you see, this constant dilemma that we have in our relationships is about how much of independence do I give, how much of dependence do I give, all of this. And the puja is one opportunity for us to actually sit back and think about this for our own life. So with this I end the first part of the talk, which is around giving you a context for all the items here used for puja. The second part that I wanted to talk about is around the Indian traditions of aesthetics. Kama Shastra is the text for how do you live a good life. Yeah. Just one part of it is Kama Sutra, but then everybody has been focused only on that. But a large part of Kama Sutra, some part of Kama Shastra also deals with Vastu Shastra. Vastu Shastra, unfortunately, today has been hijacked by astrologers. But this is not the original intent of Vastu Shastra. Everything connected with architecture and building was a part of the Vastu Shastra system. So today you have a plumber, you have a carpenter, you have a mason, all of these are separate. The traditional way of Indian building was all of these were found in the same set of people. So they work together as a team. And for those of you who come on our heritage tours, many times I will point out, hey, look here, this is in stone, but it's actually copying a wooden motif. And there are sometimes wooden motifs which are made to look like stone. Bronzes are made to look like wood. Wood is made to look like bronze. So, and this is because they wanted to look at this connection between everything. Yeah? And remember, we start from a river valley civilization where we cannot exist on our own. All our traditions talk about independence first and then independence. And all of these motives in Vastu Shastra, the way we worked in teams together was about multiple people coming together, equally important and equally being able to do all the jobs together. So in the Vastu Shastra traditions, one of them also talks about aesthetics. And when it comes to aesthetics, three things are very, very important. The first is Bhogadya. Bhoga literally means to consume. Yeah, to enjoy, to consume. Now let me take a simple example using this lamp. You don't need to get, whether it is for a stone temple which is as big as Chidambaram or Tanjavur Periyakovil or something, or whether it's for a actually this is quite a very, very elegant looking lamp. You don't even need to go this far. Even your humble Karthikeya terracotta agal vilakku, right? You can experience it for that itself. Yeah. So Bhogadyam is, if I have to light this lamp, does it fulfill the purpose for which it has been made? That's the point of the basic, which means the angle of this space should be enough for a wick to burn carefully. Yeah, which should mean that there should be the rim should be thicker over here, because if I keep washing this should not get eroded or this should not become flatter. And the rim should be in a certain way that if I light a lamp here and the wick is here, the soot shouldn't drop on the floor. There should be something here to cover it. Yeah? All of this is Bhogadya. In some of the larger lamps, in the older ones, you'll notice the middle part will be convex. Yeah? Because you don't need oil in the middle. You only need oil on the side because your wick is going to be only on the side. This is the level of attention to detail that there will be over there. This is Bhogadya, which is, it should serve the purpose for which it is made. The second is Sukha Darshana, which is it should look pleasing to the eye. And in Indian traditions, what is pleasing to the eye is very simple. It should be symmetrical. Anything we believe is symmetrical is automatically pleasing to the eye. So if you look at that Krishna, we'll go into great trouble to put the same set of motifs on either side. All over Indian art, you will notice that if there's a mandapam, it will be similar on both sides. But they may be, you might notice that one Hamsa might have a little bit more pink of the other. That's artistic liberties. But the broad aspect is symmetrical equals beautiful. This is Sukha Darshana. Now, this alone is not enough. The third part is Ramya. Ramya is inner delight. When do I get inner delight? When I'm able to say, oh yeah, I never thought of this. That moment of, oh yes, I never thought of it. That is inner delight. And inner delight comes only when we are able to do puja. The whole idea is every day I look at that same lamp again and again and again and again, and I say, because I'm looking at it so deeply every time, surely there must be something deeper that I should be thinking about. Yeah. And and this is not just for objects. You take the Ramayana or the Mahabharata or the Divya Prabandhan, Devaram, all of them, they're all end with the Falastuti. If you say this is what you will get. Yeah. That's a very transactional way, but that's the hook to get you in. But the hope is, if you read the Ramayana every day, again and again and again, at some point in time when I'm going through a tough time in life, I'll say, hey dude, Rama also went through a lot of tough times. I have to move over and get on with this. What could I do from this Ramayana to learn for me to handle my own challenges in life? Once that happens, that's really when Ramyas happen. So Ramya is in the context of a text. It can also be in the context of these kind of objects. Ramya would be inner delight where it helps me understand what is the key to moksha and happiness. Though there are many theories of what gives us moksha, in a more philosophic and a tangible way across India in Hinduism, whether it is divided by community or caste or whatever it is, the generic purpose of the way of getting moksha is through dharma. And dharma is about coming together with everybody. It's about recognizing that I am independent, my needs are different, your needs are different. There's a plate of jaggery here and there's only one jaggery. I want to have it as much as I don't want you to have it. Yeah? It's my selfish need, but how can I move beyond that and say that, yeah, but if I split it between 5 people and have it, we'll all have fun. And this whole understanding of moksha, mukti, all of it is, if I'm able to work with society, then I will be able to see myself. So it's all about service to the other and therefore to myself. Because if you look at say the Western philosophers, nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg, Marshall Rosenberg, for example, he would say at one point in time, the need for connection and contribution is the two most basic needs, and this is what dharma is about. That I need this connection with other human beings, and unless I contribute to larger society is not going to take. The ability for a motive or a product to trigger this thought of this into your mind is really what Ramya is. So Bogadhyam is about the product being perfectly designed for the use it is meant for. Sukha Darshana is it should be pleasing to the eye, which is symmetrical. And the third is Ramya, which is it should cause inner delight and it should make me think differently. So in the lamp, for example, this one doesn't have it, but you see somewhere here, there was one with a Hamsa. Yeah. So this is where our animals come into play. There's one there. Hamsa or parrot. Yeah. The Hamsa was a mythical bird which was so pure of heart. Right? So some people say it's a swan. It's not really a swan. It's a bit of a swan. It's a bit of a duck as well. Some part of it looks like a peacock as well. If you look at it is a bird of mythical value, and it was so pure of heart that if you gave it a mixture of milk and water, it would drink the milk and it would leave the water behind. And the funda behind this is, there's a lot of crap in the world, but you can choose either to go with the crap or you can go with the good stuff and make your life out of it. Lotuses, I'm sure you'll find across the shop somewhere, either if not in a motif or at least all our gods and goddesses will have lotuses at some point in time. Yeah? Same funda for a lotus. The lotus grows in a place of great dirt and filth. Yeah, but it rises above that dirt and filth. It looks towards the sun, which is the source of all light, and therefore it teaches us that there is a lot of muck around us. We need to go beyond this. And the pad of the lotus also is something which doesn't let water drop on it and it lets it away. So every time we see a lotus, it becomes a quick check for us to say, hey, am I following these principles? Am I remembering these things, or am I just look? I can admire it as a flower, that's okay too. I can also admire it as somebody, an artist who's painted it really beautifully, but I can also see this. Those are answers out there on that question. Parrots you will find very often. Parrots are symbols of love. They're symbols of love, they're symbols of affection. They go back to the core of interdependence. Sometimes you might find half parrot, half lion, and you find this very frequently in weapons. The parrot symbolizes love, and the lion or the yali over here symbolizes bravery. And you'll see that the artist has pointed out this is a yali in the context of it's subduing an elephant. An elephant is for majesty, is for royalty. So when a warrior had a weapon which had a yali combined with a parrot, he was reminded that he had to fight with love for the country, but he also had to fight with a lot of bravery and courage. So these are some of those. The bull is an interesting one. The Nandi is an interesting one. I'm going to go on to a possible hypothesis that was advanced by a very, very famous historian called D.D. Kosambi. Kosambi was actually a mathematician. But he didn't become very famous in India for mathematics. He was a Marxist historian. He had a very, very original way of thinking. Now, across cultures, the bull has had a connection with virility, especially in cultures like ours or Greek, which are pastoral systems, where you need the bull to have more cows. So, the bull has become a very important symbol. And if you look at Greek mythology, every time Zeus wants to ravish a woman, he takes the form of a bull. His belief is that at a time when humankind still hadn't understood the whole menstrual cycle and the 9 months of pregnancy, they felt that there was something to do with childbirth or cows giving birth, the tides, and the waxing and the waning of the moon. So they saw some connection in these 4 things. Now, what looks more than the crescent moon than the shape of the bull's horns? So even today you'll see Nandi, Shivana on the Nandi Vaya Parvo. This is the bull's horn, that lens of looking at it. And the waxing and the waning of the moon was also connected with our own mental stability. Even when I had to do this function for my wife was expecting a child, many of the hymns were actually for Chandra and for Rohini. Was Chandra's wife. They had some connection. They'd already by that time figured out that there was something to do with the moon and with the mental stability. So Kosambi believes that when the worship of the bull and the tribe of people who are worshipping the bull as a totem figure, that had to be incorporated in the Hindu traditions. They made the bull a Vahana of Shiva. And you will find this consistently in the way Hindus' traditions have worked with how do I deal with people who I want to bring into my faith. There are 2 ways to do it. One is to fight and win over them. That's temporary. You don't make long-term, it might be compliance, but it won't be long-term commitment. The smarter way to have done it, which is what Hinduism has consistently done, is they will take certain key motifs or icons from that group and they will incorporate it into the regular worship that is already happening in a way that their respect is still there. So Nandi is equally respected, but you all know that Nandi is one step below Shiva. So it's a very small nuance over here. I want you to be in my group. What you say is important. Your God is important to me. It will be important, but my God will just that one little inch, he'll be a little above. So we're both together. Your God is also important, but my level of importance and my level of priority is still maintained. The bull must have come in like this. Snakes you will find very often. Snakes, especially cobras, have been seen for many centuries as a fertility symbol. Even today, some of our old temples, Tirupulani, which we're doing, that Rameshwaram tour that's coming up, is a center for worshipping the snakes or doing pujas for people who don't have children. And I think they must have really focused on the snake because unlike many other animals, if you've seen cobras mating with each other, they actually twine with each other. Many of those stones will actually have that. So snakes, long tradition of fertility. Most of the time we see snakes in these must have been very different from what all these people were practicing. And to bring them in you had to start speaking the language that they were comfortable with. You had to start using the role models that they were comfortable with. So your snakes are that. The peacock must have been something like that, though we're not very sure. The rooster would have been something like this. In our old traditions, the goat was actually sacrificed to Muruga. We have Tamil hymns that talk about how goats were sacrificed to Muruga because the goat was representative of indolence and not having critical thinking. So when these animals became a part of mainstream Hinduism, they took on the form of a vahana, which meant that the deity stood over the animal. And in a way, they were talking not just about what the animal was, but what the animal represented as well. So, elephant would represent grandeur, and elephants had a long tradition of being connected with kings because the more elephants you had, the more likely it was for the king to win. Ganesha, who becomes very popular actually in South India, Palliyarpatti, Thirukodapudi, which is near Karaikudi. These are some of Kudumiyamalai. These are some of the earliest places in the south where you see Ganesha. And Ganesha is an incorporation of the elephant, which must have been an animal to be feared by the farmers because they could cause havoc. And it was also an animal to be respected because the more elephants you had, the more powerful you were as a king. How do you bring this figure into our day-to-day worship? How do you appease it? You create a god of mixing human being and elephant together. So it could have well been a case where there were groups of people who were worshipping the elephant as a god by itself. But that didn't quite work well for the traditional Hindu speaking, the Vedic conscious kind of people. So they said, okay, half of half. You give me the head of your god, and I will put the body of mine, and we'll create the god. And this is you'll find in the Vedic hymns, for example, you don't find much references to Ganesha. In fact, whatever little you find are not very complimentary to him either. Bambodara is distended belly. Yeah, Ganapati is the commander of the Shiva's forces. So when Ganesha got a promotion, Chandikeshwara took his place. And you'll see gods also have popularity. So these were some of the motifs that I wanted to pick. The fish is a motif that you see fairly frequently because of the tradition of Matsya-Nyaya. Matsya-Nyaya is where the big fish eats the small fish, and it is only to get out of this terrible cycle of I eat you, you eat me, I eat you, you eat me, we need to move to Dharma. And when we move to Dharma, then it means both the big fish and the small fish are both happy. And you'll find fish motifs very often. The fish also never sleep. So they are seen as something that will ward off the evil eye. There are also some fish, especially the tilapias and more the chanas, which take care of their broods, which take care of the young. So it was quite often to be seen for a fish to be described as a woman's eyes, but also to depict a woman because a woman's motherly instinct was to take care of her offspring. So fish would be coming in for these kind of things. The cow and Kamadhenu, of course, the classic reason is we are a pastoral society, and across different continents, the more cows you had, the more wealth you had. Kamadhenu, or also called Nandini or Surabhi, are our most important cows. They lived in a place called Goloka. There are many stories about them. The one that where Vashishta looked after Kamadhenu and Vishwamitra wanted to take over Kamadhenu was, of course, one popular story. There's one that I'm fond of, which Bharata tells in the Ramayana to Kaikeyi. Bharata says to Kaikeyi, what a horrible thing that you've done. You thought you've done me a good deed, but you've actually made me sin. Because how can a fox take over the throne that was meant for a lion? And at that time he talks about what a true mother should be. And the story goes thus. It was 12 noon in the afternoon. In the peak of summer, must have been in a place not very far off from Chennai because it was really hot. And Indra was on his chariot in the skies, and suddenly a drop of water falls and it singes him. Yeah. And Indra is surprised. He's really incredulous because he says, "How can water singe me? And who did this?" And he looks up and he sees Kamadhenu flying on the top, and she's crying. And Indra says, "Why are you crying?" And Kamadhenu says, "Look down." Indra says, "Yeah, what's there? These two cows which are plowing the field." Kamadhenu says, "No, you don't understand. For just one fistful of grass, these two cows have to undergo so much of torture in the midday sun when you and I can't even stand here. We are going so fast to our destination." And then Indra says, "My God, you are the archetype of all women. Because these cows mean nothing to you. There have been billions of cows after you gave birth to the first cow. So they're not even great grandchildren. They're way beyond all that. and yet you feel so much for them that passion and that anger and that sadness is even able to singe me, the God of all gods. So, and that piece, as Bharata says, is how a mother should be. And he goes on to say, Rama was like your own child. How could you do this? And then the story goes on. But that's one story about the Kamadevu. They were on that side. There are these two Tanjo paintings on Kavadis. So Kavadi is it's a very interesting tradition that is unique to Tamil Nadu. The worship of Muruga was there far before we had all our Sanskrit gods in Shiva and Parvati and all of them. Muruga at that point of time was known as Seyon. Seyon is one who has red eyes. Red eyes not because he has a hangover, but because he was constantly at war. He was a war god. Yeah? And mountains, the entire mountain was Muruga. And Muruga always lived in the mountain because mountains also sense of power. Yeah? And tactically also, mountain would have been, in those days when people were fighting small armies with each other, a mountain would have been a great lookout point for an army coming. It would all be very, very practical reasons why they would have had things like this. So the entire Kundam Kumaran is a traditional aphorism. So the entire mountain is a part of Muruga. Then the mountain becomes sacred, and that becomes one way for you to experience God. So it goes back to that, how do I see God in everything? And in the old days, it is very likely, even the Arupadai Veeda that we have today, in the mountain there would have been one way. That would have been Muruga. The whole mountain would have been Muruga. We wouldn't have even had a temple in those days, though Tiruparamandaram is one of our oldest Muruga temples. It's a cave temple, a very beautiful one for you to go and have a look at. When Muruga was encountered by the Pallava kings in about the 6th century, they had to deal with how to work Muruga into their system. You don't find any references to Muruga in the Vedic kings. There's some references to Muruga in the Ramayana when Vishwamitra tells a story, but even that some people feel is not in the critical edition. It came much later. Orissa and West Bengal have had a traditional Muruga worship. There's a lot of contention between scholars whether it went from here or they had an independent, some other deity who later became Muruga. But they don't call him Muruga. Muruga is a very uniquely Tamil word. They call him Kartikeya. So when the Pallavas encountered Muruga, they had to work with how to bring this Muruga into the Pallava fold. And they hit upon this very beautiful idea that Muruga was Shiva's child. And it was in the Pallava period you first see images of Somaskanda, which is Shiva and Parvati as the parents, Muruga as the child. And then, only then do we have Muruga becoming a Chapi Devi. Otherwise, he was a war god of his own right. The Kavadi was taken by devotees of Muruga who had to physically exert themselves. And this is again, it goes back to a tradition of you don't need to do Vedic rituals if you cannot do them, because there are multiple ways to reach the deity. And for people who had no money, this was the way. The only thing that they could do was to physically go into tortuous ways to show their devotion. And also, it's very difficult for us to understand why somebody will, pierce their arms and pierce their, all that. It's painful for us to understand. But unless you go and see a village festival, especially at a time when there have been 2 or 3 successive years of droughts, we don't understand the abject pain and desperation they have just to have rains. Yeah, and what can they give? They cannot give food because they don't have it. They can't invest in rituals. The only thing they can do is torture their own body. And that's how systems like the Kavadi and Palputra and the Kalputra, all of those kind of things, they all came at that point in time. Some of the older Kavadi figures, and then of course in the 18th, 19th century, Kavadi became something that even wealthy patrons could do. And if you look at the Victorian Albert Museum, the online collection, you will see some fabulous examples of full-scale Kavadis. They're not as simple as we see them today. Very highly carved. Some of them had embellishments of gilded work on them. The textile on the top was a kind of a quilted textile that we had. The rods were made out of in fashioned out metal, and you had not just peacock feathers but multiple decorations. Very, very elaborate examples of Kavadi. You'll see some, I don't know whether they're full examples, but there are at least photographs of them and paintings of them as well. Because those were the times when English visitors and people who were in the English army, they have to take back souvenirs. And they encourage painters, especially in Trichy, to paint these scenes and take them back, and they make a lot of money. So you couldn't buy a postcard, you actually bought these folios of paintings of local castes and communities, local traders, and you took them back, and in these you can find some beautiful examples of the Kavadi over there. How are we doing on time? How much more time? Another 20. So, wanted to spend some time on the Tanjore paintings because there are lots of them there, and on the Kerala murals over here. The tradition of how paintings came in is told in the Vishnu Dharmotha Purana. There was a time when sage Nara and Narayana were meditating in the forest. And when any sage meditated in the forest, the first person who got insecure was Indra. Because Indra was not a person, he was only a position. And the Indra is an archetype for a person who has everything but is yet insecure. Vishnu or Shiva are archetypes of people who have nothing but are still very secure. And of course, Indra got very, very agitated about this. And Indra sent down Menaka, who was one of his temptresses, down to distract him. And as Menaka was performing a beautiful dance, Nara kept drawing something on his thigh. And once he had finished, this image was so perfect, he was able to breathe life into it. Because it was on his thigh, which is Uru in Sanskrit, she became Urvashi. And when she became alive because of Nara's penances, she was so much better than Menaka that Indra was subdued. And I guess Nara must have become the new Indra at that point in time. So, what Vishnu Dharmotha Purana says therefore is for a painting to be considered a painting, it must be truly lifelike. Because the first painting that was made was so lifelike that somebody breathed life into it and it became a independent woman. So for us, we don't look at abstract art and all of that stuff. Our techniques for evaluating a painting is very clear. Bogadil, it should fulfill the function it is used for, which is you should be able to see God in it. Sukhadarshana, it should look pleasing to the eye. So the colors, the objects. So even Ravana, for example, will never be shown in a horrific way. So you'll never find paintings here of Asuras being shown very in a horrific way. Because that's not showing a horrific figure will inspire fear and will not help you achieve calmness, number one. And number two, our Asuras are not bad guys. Because every Asura and every Rakshasa eventually goes to heaven. Notice all your stories, all of them go back to heaven because they are also archetypes of people who have those qualities within us. An Asura is a person who constantly complains, and a Rakshasa is somebody who grabs. So whenever a Krishna or a Rama is grabbing something that is not theirs, is complaining about something, they also become an Asura or a Rakshasa at that point. The only problem is full-fledged Asuras and Rakshasas, where they did 80% of that and only 20% of it, like Ravana and Rasa. Yeah, so you have these paintings are on the purpose of these paintings, therefore, and with Ramya was about how do I get those qualities within myself, which is why none of your paintings in Indian art are ever signed at the bottom. Because when the painter painted it, he was already sure that it was not about his work and his identity in making a product that could help somebody else achieve moksha. He achieved moksha himself. So his dharma was the ability of being a stepping stone for somebody's success, and that person's dharma was in a puja to actually thank all the people who had created the objects to make the puja. And I would still, today when I do the Aradhan, there is a one-liner or at least a pause when I have to thank and remember all the craftsmen who actually made those objects possible for me to use. In the painting tradition, we have a very, very old tradition in the most continuous tradition of painting in South India, if not in India across, is in Tanjore. You have the Pradeep temple which had the Chola frescoes. The Chola frescoes were wet frescoes, which meant the wall had to be wet and the plaster had to be wet, and the painting was done. And the artist had to be an extremely good expert with chemical knowledge, because the lime and the alkaline in the plaster would react with the chemicals in the paint, and what he saw would not be what the others would see. So you had to be very, very aware of that, and you had to be right first time round because it was wet plaster. If you made a mistake, the entire wall had to be erased and a new painting had to be done. This is in the Tanjavur tradition. This is a very, very complicated, it takes a lot of time. So you have one example, Pradeep temple you have from the Chola tradition. Sittanavasal we have from the Pallava and the Pandya schools. Theagaraya temple also we have from the Pandya school. Kailasnatha temple here has some small fragments left over from the Pallava school. So there's just 3 or 4 temples in Tamil Nadu which still have these old traditions. They're all about 1,000 years old for sure. These complicated ways of painting was possible because the king supported it. So the artist did not have to be worried about money. But by about the 16th century, so that's what, 900 years back, the patronage changed. The king did not support the painters. It was local landlords and local warlords who supported it. And you never knew when they would start to get out of cash. So the work had to be done faster. Because it had to be done faster, many things changed. They became much less involved in showing depth. So the Chola period, you can actually, in that style, you can see depth. Clouds will show perspective, height will show perspective. You can actually see 2-3 levels in the painting. But by this time, that becomes difficult. You have more static figures. The Tanjavur tradition of painting comes from about the time of Sarfoji II, who ruled around 200-300 years back. Sarfoji II was a remarkable man because he was at the price that he had to pay for the British was that they took away the entire Thanjavur territory and they just left him a fort and they gave him a pension. He could have easily spent his money on wine, women and song, which is what most Rajas would have done at that time. But this man was very different. He was truly a scholar king, and you name it, he encouraged it. He did his own eye surgeries. He was very deeply interested in horticulture. He was deeply interested in shipbuilding. He built a lighthouse. He was credited with creating much of the Tanjavur Sarsimha library that we have. He compiled manuscripts on food. He started schools and to make education easier. He composed dance dramas that children could dance and play and therefore learn geography. Yeah, this is the kind of Tanjore painting was also something that he created. The tradition of fixing a cloth on wooden board is not new. We've had this in the Chola period. In fact, in the Bradishwara temple, there is a very damaged mural showing Rajaraja Chola praying to Nataraja. And Chidambaram Nataraja was their tutelary deity. So it's well possible that he had that painting in his home. But we don't have any examples of those. They were all very, very fragile. You have the board, and on the board there is a paste that's made out of tamarind tree, crushed tamarind tree seeds, and then the cloth. The cloth is rubbed over with pumice stone so many times it becomes like marble, and then the painting is done. Now in Tanjore paintings, in the older books, they don't get a lot of good works because these older books they were applying Western rules of painting traditions and Western rules of how a painting should be to a Tanjore tradition. But the Tanjore tradition purpose was completely different. These paintings today are meant for the living room and the drawing room, but in those days were meant for deep contemplation in the puja room. So when that had to be the space, the artist had to be very focused on the main image. Because the idea is to get you to do nivritti, which is direct your concentration to one aspect, which is why you'll see in any Tanjore painting, the central figure is big. All other figures around will in some way be connected to the central figure. In the old ones, and I think that's a good example over there, that's a Ganesha. Yeah, so you will see the color around Ganesha is red in color. It's a darker color, but the deity himself is lighter in color. So the contrast of the color means that the eyes look inward. If that Ganesha had a lighter color, like a light blue, which is what he's shown outside for the contrast, then the eye goes outwards. So you focus on the rest, you don't focus on the main deity. So in the old Tanjore paintings, like this one, or in this one here, Krishna, there is a black background and the figures are in light color. All the time, the main deity's color will vary according to the Shilpa Shastra, but the surrounding color will typically be a dark black or a dark crimson to focus the viewer inwards. But if they are subsidiary figures, it doesn't matter, they will have whatever color they have. This is rule number one. Rule number two. Rule number one was the size. So it was always in in Tamil traditions of painting or sculpture, size matters. If the artist wants to tell you that this is the focus, he will show you the size as being much larger. The second thing was in this application of gold would have come out as a natural consequence of the same community of painters, the Raju caste, were also decorating the Vahanas. In those, by that time, the use of gilt leaf or gold foil is a very old tradition. We've been using it for a long time. Uh, Temples that could not afford a brass fixing for the Vahana would resort to gilt. And this was by that time during the Vijayanagar period, it somehow went to the Telugu speaking Raju community. So many of these people would have had this idea of transferring what your guilt you're putting on the wooden Vahana, you can put on the wooden board which has a cloth in between, but this has to stick. For that, they again use the tamarind seed paste. And what they would do in the very old paintings is they would mix this tamarind paste with very, very finely sieved sawdust. And the sawdust is also easy to get them because the Raju caste was also doing some of the Vahanas. So it is all, it was all a family shop, you could get that. The oldest Tanjore paintings are about 150, 200 years old. The Kuldeep Singh collection, which is now at the Bombay Museum, is a good one. The Chennai Museum also has a good one, good collection, and so does the Delhi Museum. You will find that the Tanjore paintings there are very, very fine. So it's almost like paper. That takes a long time to do it. But parallel to that tradition, here I think there's a Lakshmi over here, which is a bit of a 3D kind of an image there, the Tanjore painting. Parallel to that, there was also this tradition of making that paste of terracotta, of tamarind paste, of sawdust a little thicker and making it stick to give a high relief. This was also there, and that whole thing would be coated with gold. Not painted, but coated with gold. By about the 1900s or 1910s, this seems to, the demand for Tanjore painting started going up. And because the demand went up, this was not a very viable way of mass producing paintings. So, because it takes a lot of time to make the gesso paste so thin that actually the older dealers will call it palposi, which is that it has to be the consistency of milk. Very difficult for it to dry, and then you'll have to put a gold foil over there. Then if you want designs on that, then you'll have to put gold. You'll have to put more of that and cover it. So it will take 3-4 months for you to complete just the Veshti. It takes a long time. What they did therefore was they started making the paste a little thicker. They applied the gold and started painting on top of it. The poor man's alternative for a Tanjore painting were glass paintings, or reverse glass paintings. These paintings came to us from China. It was a Chinese tradition of painting on glass. We picked it up from there. So one way is to say, okay, I mean, glass painting not that much over, but it means a lot of focus for the craftsman, because like this person who painted this will not know how the painting will look. He'll have to exactly do the opposite, because he's not seeing the painting as the painting is being done, because the painting is viewed from the front. So it took a lot of effort to do this, and I remember my aunts and all telling me that even about the 1940s, you had people on carts who used to sell glass paintings and Tanjore paintings. And these were the kind of souvenirs that you'd pick up when you went to Sri Rangam or Chidambaram or any of the big temples where many, many people live. The death blow to these were dealt by this one over here. Ravi Varma came at a time when he started painting oil paintings, which very quickly captured the imagination of people. One is to see a very classical depiction of Saraswati, very rigidly, formally seen. It makes one feel very respectful towards the deity, but it's a kind of tough ask to say, okay, that deity is also within me. She's not wearing the same kind of sari that somebody else is wearing. She's not wearing the same kind of jewelry that somebody else is wearing. Ravi Varma, I think, was a master salesman. He figured that out. And he started painting our gods and goddesses in more contemporary clothes and apparels. That caught on to the mass, and then when the masses wanted more, he set up the prints. The prints never made much money, but they displaced traditions like these. In contrast to this tradition of Tanjore painting is the Kerala mural tradition. The Kerala mural tradition was also a wet fresco method that moved to a dry fresco method, but they they had much more rigid color coding, and they follow the very traditional, the Vishnu Dharma Purana tradition of using only red, yellow, white, green, and black. And all the time, the color of the person also depicted the guna. So purity or sattva guna would be typically green, or knowledge and wisdom. Rajas was where activity would be gold and yellow. Tamasic gunas of inertia would typically be shown in white. Now contrast the white of a tamasic guna with the Butterpot Krishna. I'm sure there must be a Tanjore painting there of a Butterpot Krishna. If there is one Tanjore painting that people should own, either it's a Butterpot Krishna or it's a Raman Pattabhishekam. The Butterpot Krishna came to us because Tanjore painters were inspired by the Baroque cherubs, which had become very popular in the churches that were being built in Tanjore. Chubby little babies with angels on them. So you either put them on the ceilings, and even today the Bradeshwara temple, you'll see many of those. And on Tanjore painting sides, you'll see those angels. Those came from the Western tradition. And when you had that kind of a cherub, you wanted to show Krishna like that. So they forgot about the tradition of Krishna actually being dark black in color, and they made it white, which is why this white baby Krishna is one that you will find only uniquely to the Tanjore traditions. So yeah, I think these were a few of the things that I wanted to say. There's some stuff that I wanted to talk about Dashavataras, which we do for another talk. The Tirupati temple, there are many images of the Tirupati Perumal over there. Thiruvengatam, as he is typically called, one of our most favorite temples in the south and now across the world. One lesser known fact about the Tirupati temple is in terms of dating. Next time you visit Tirupati, you can manage all the crowds and all of that stuff. Next to the main deity will be a small, tiny silver deity. You won't see it very clearly. You have to really search for it. That deity is called the Bhoga Srinivasa Perumal. And the Bhoga Srinivasa Perumal is considered is a gift to the temple in 614 AD by a Pallava queen called Samavai. Perandevi or Samavai was her name. And even today, much of the religious importance for the temple is actually for that deity. Not for the main deity, but actually for that deity. The temple is important for Tamil speaking Vaishnavites because out of the 12 Arvas, 10 of them have sung about the temple. We have a total of 202 verses on the temple. Many of them actually don't look at the main deity. They look at that mountain itself as being important. And it goes back to that very core concept that it's not God, it's just a representation, it's really the mountain that is sacred. And the two Arvas who didn't sing about, one was one who sang only about Namarva, so he doesn't count anyway, and the other was somebody who sang only about Shiva. Otherwise, all the 10 have sung about Tirupati. And the first use for Alamelu or Alamel Mange is actually from a Namarva verse, where he says Alamel Mange Ore Mahaka, which is the one who has Alamel Manga in his chest. I thought we should end this talk with the recitation of one or two verses from Kulasekara Adva's verses on Tirupati. It's from his text called the Perumal Tirumuri, and he talks about how he would like to be anything on that hill. That's how special it is for him. He also sings in great devotion of Sri Rangam. செடியாய வல்வினைகள் தீர்க்கும் திருமாலே நெடியானே வேங்கடவா மின் கோவிலின் வாசல் அடியாரும் அவளவாய் காண்பே. I hope this short talk has given you some sense of how to look at motives in art and craft, also to look at puja in a slightly different way, to understand the Indian traditions of aesthetics. Hopefully next time you see animals or flowers or motives, you look at them differently. We could have gone through a lot more of the other things apart from puja and touch of painting and all that. There's always more. Yes, sir.
There must have been motives in plants and animals, covered birds and animals. But you see all those.
Those vines, no? Yeah, all of them are just vines. I don't think we. So the plants, the flowers, have a lot of connection to poetry. The stages of war, for example, each of them are actually connected to a flower. There are 6 stages of war. You first go and kidnap their cattle and bring them back. Then you send one battle to fight. Then if there is a loss, if there is a win, mage male, all that. Everyone has a flower attached to it. But you don't find those flowers in the paintings as much. But you do a little bit. I mean, Tulsi you find, and you'll find the Shiva, you'll find the Bilva, you'll find the Umata as well. So you'll find some, but not many.
Like patterns.
They're more patterns, yes, that's right. They're more patterns. So this Bridishwara temple, that one mural is on Sundaramurti Nana getting married, and you'll find on the pattern there's one part where for the wedding feast things are getting made, and they're sitting under a pandal which is clearly a block printed textile because you can see in that there are these prints of geese and creepers. You can see each one of those. Tiny. Oh, just see it's a very technically structural thing because if the pedestal is inverted, then the move is towards looking up to the top. So it's all how do you get the eye to go up to see what you want it to see. It's the same principle of if you have a red color background for a white deity, you focus inwards. If you have the pedestal looking outwards, your eye goes outwards. So that would be Bogati. But if you're able to see, look, this image, this deity is standing on the lotus, and the lotus is about how do I recognize this, and he's conquered it. How can I conquer it? That would be lovely. And if the petals are symmetrical, that's the question. So the artist may not know it, but he knows the 3 principles.
So, thank
you very much.
And thank you all. Just a couple of Mystical Paramara is the heritage wing of Embassy Travels and focus is on high-end heritage tours around Tamil Nadu and now beyond Tamil Nadu, but mostly focusing on India, you know. And Chitramayi started like 20 years ago in Tirupur and now has a branch in E Road, and this is their first venture in Chennai. So like I request all of you like put the word across so and make their new venture a success. Okay, thank you so much.